We are live, orange and blue today, presented by Sean Honda. It is Cecil Lammey. It is Andrew Mason, and we are here for you to talk about the Denver Broncos. But Mace, I do want you to note, as you are the resident baseball guy, we will not be talking about opening day on this show. One, I don't want to be mean. I won't be mean, Mace. I was going to say some mean stuff about baseball, but I do want you to know that I did wear purple, and as I get into yoga mode here, I wore my anti-gravity machine ones, which are purple. So there you go.
Anti-gravity machine? I mean,
That's the name of the Jordan ones. They're the
oh,
anti-gravity machines. Yeah, I
oh,
suppose I could take it off and show the camera. That'd probably be better than knocking everything over. So yeah, these are the ones I wore today. They are purple. So don't say I don't care. I mean, I don't care, but don't say I don't care, Mace.
okay. Because I've never heard the term anti-gravity machine used to describe Jordan ones. That's why I was like, oh,
Yeah,
what are those?
it's the name of the shoe. So there you
Oh,
go. That's the conclusion your Rockies talk for me today. But how are you,
yeah.
man?
That's all for the purple, huh? So you didn't go up to Coors Field, didn't take it in. By the way, thing I was noticing is that I talked about this Will Pearson last night on Denver Sports Tonight, and even looked it up right before first pitch. That game didn't sell out today. Like there were, I mean, not just like scattered singles, but like clumps of two, three, four, five seats together right there as first pitch neared. And I'll say this: I have become somebody who doesn't really relish the opening day experience. And I think it was the turning point for me was going to opening day, and it was Rockies Cubs several years ago and getting beer spilled on me. And I'm like, I think I can just wait a day or two. And then so it became kind of a tradition to go not to the first game, but the second or third game, often with my daughter, sometimes, sometimes by myself. Then that was sort of the opening of the season for me. So I do wonder if maybe between the team struggling and just the perception of opening day in Denver being something of a raucous affair, I wonder if there are some people who've said, I'm just going to wait. And on top of everything else, Cease, the same ticket that cost you $95 today, face value, is $31 tomorrow. Same two teams.
Right, right. Just being there on opening day and what it'll
Hmm.
say about what you do with your sports calendar. What does Brad do with his spare time? Because every day he makes fun of what I wear. Brad, buddy, like,
The Barney
come on.
remark.
Come on. Like, yeah, it's a disco collar. It's Barney. What else? My shirt looked like a Motel 6 curtain. Like, I literally don't care, but dude, come on. Does Brad D stand for Dick Cheney? Like, come on, dude.
Oh,
Like,
oh, oh,
come on.
wow,
Like, seriously. Well, when
wow.
I'm in a mood, I'm in a mood. I don't need someone making fun of my fashion every day on this show, Mace. That's what you get. So,
What has you in the mood today? What's wrong? I mean, it's
well, technical difficulties, if you must
again,
know.
yeah, we're a little
Yeah,
late starting,
yeah,
and
we're
I'm
a little late starting,
might have been
and
at my end. If they were, I'm sorry.
no,
Everything
no.
seemed to
Well,
be
we've
working
had it
fine.
on my end, and that once on your end. Like for me personally, maybe it's the old school radio guy in me. Like the show starts at 3:30. Like the show starts at 3:30.
You've got
Yet
to
when you
embrace the
do
digital.
a digital streaming, you've got cameras and you've got lights and you've got microphones. So yeah, I'm a little bit in a mood today.
Yeah,
So
and you got to embrace the digital. Not only is it, sometimes things start a little later, but also a higher percentage of the audience does not watch this live.
mhm.
Now, radio, it's out there, and while you can listen to it in podcast form, not a lot of people do. It's basically a live medium. The digital space, it's a little more about time shifting and watching and listening when you want to. So you got to embrace that. That this is the future, my friend.
Mhm.
This is the way things are going. And no, I don't think the Degen Stoner. I don't think that's the reason why we started late.
Although that
But
would be an
nice
interesting reason
try.
if it was, right? Okay,
Oh,
well, my rant aside, Brad has apologized in the chat room. Brad, we're good. we're
Yeah.
good, okay? Or send me fashion tips, okay?
Hmm.
Cecil at denversports.com. Send me whatever fashion tip that you would like. Anyway, Broncos draft previews are going up live now at denversports.com. You and I are
Hmm.
going through and kind of attacking things in a little bit different way. And we did get our draft schedule today, Mace. I want to let you know nothing makes me happier. I could work the whole year, and if
Hmm.
I don't do the entire draft, I'm like super unhappy.
Okay.
So when I got the email today, it's like, hey, here's the schedule, and I'm on for the entire draft. That makes me happy. So I
Yeah.
guess I should be happy there, Mace.
Yeah, you should be. I mean, it's funny because I saw that and I wasn't sure kind of what my role was. Like, first of all, I assume that we're doing everything from the studio, right? Is that the plan?
Yes, I suppose so. I
Okay.
haven't been to a draft since Nashville, right? Because then
Okay.
COVID knocked us out, and then to
Yeah.
Vegas, and then Cleveland, and then Kansas City this year. So yeah,
Okay.
I will be in studio again. I actually haven't been out to Broncos for the draft since No Sean Moreno, since that
Yeah.
draft, because it was 2010. I started going to New York City to Radio City Music Hall.
Yeah, because I usually cover the draft from Broncos, but based on the schedule we got, it sounds like I'll actually be in studio a lot. So
Honestly, we should talk about that off air,
probably
but
we
because I
probably
think
should
you
we
should be
probably
at
should.
Broncos. Yeah, I think you
We,
should be at Broncos, and then just we have some equipment there for you. But either way, we are covering the draft for you
yeah.
like no other right here at denversports.com. And when it comes to running back, and I've written about him, you've written about him, denversports.com, everyone wants explosive. Okay, well, your options are going to be limited because one of our favorite explosive guys, Mr. Tulane himself,
Hmm.
is probably not going to be there when the Broncos pick at 67, just based on the most recent buzz that you hear.
Yeah, and it's not really recent. I think this buzz started actually at the Senior Bowl when Ty J Spears lit it up and came out of that thinking, all right, he went from somebody we were probably talking about as a fourth rounder to one who was probably going to be uh, early third, which meant very borderline. Now it seems like momentum is on his side to be in the first two rounds, which is unfortunate, I think, because this is somebody who I believe would have been an absolute splendid, perfect fit to fill the Alvin Kamara role for the Broncos. Right down to being if you'd be able to get him in the third round, just like Sean Payton and the Saints were able to get Kamara in the third round back in 2017, would have been absolutely sensational. Could handle catching the ball out of the backfield. He's terrific at that. Just no holes in his game. He's got explosiveness, good hands, can help out as a blocker as well. Um, Frankly, I would have probably felt better about him than even Javonte Williams at full health. That's not going to be, but that's almost certainly not going to be the case. That he's not going to fall that far. If he does, great. I think if he's sitting there at pick 67, to me he should be the pick. And the Broncos don't have to pick for need; they can pick BPA, and I think he could well be the BPA. But
Yeah.
I
I don't think
don't
he'll
think he's
be
going to be there.
there. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's the same thing I say to UCLA fans who want Zach Charbonnet. He's
yes,
not going to be there either. So if you want explosive, you will have options, Mace. There's always options. But I think we're talking more about a Deuce Vaughn type of option. And maybe not at 67 for Deuce Vaughn. That's understandable. But I think as we get closer to the draft, we can kind of start to put to bed some of the names or dreams or fantasies that we had about the Broncos getting a Zach Charbonnet or getting a Tyjae Spears.
yeah. I mean, the thing with Deuce Vaughn, if you get him, you're strictly getting a situational back. Is the only thing. You're talking about him being being a part of the mix and not being someone who's every down. Now, you hope that Javonte Williams can be back, but you can you can string something together with Deuce Vaughn and have him playing about 25-30% of the snaps and setting him up in space, and he can be incredibly explosive for you. To me, I'd be okay with that, but I think the expectations have to be in line. Also, with Deuce Vaughn, I'd say that the draft spot has to be in line. I wouldn't be comfortable with a third. I'm not. I don't think I'm really comfortable with a fourth for Deuce Vaughn. I think I'm more in the fifth round range with him.
Yeah, fifth round range would be fine. You get your explosive, but you're still getting committee backs. And, you look at what the Broncos want to do this year. It's run the heck out of the ball. We talk about Spears. We talk about a Charbonnet, perhaps a Deuce Vaughn. Is there any? I bring up Tavion Thomas, but he's not a speed guy. And unfortunately for Tavion Thomas, who was the cover athlete for my article about running backs at denversports.com, Thomas can't catch. I'm sorry. I went in, we were watching practice together. I was like, look at that catch, look at that catch, look at that catch. And then they went to team drills. He's like dropping everything. I'm like, damn it. He had an opportunity at the Shrine Bowl, Tavion Thomas did, to really kind of change the narrative about him or to get teams to look at him differently. He wasn't targeted that much at Utah. I guess, Mace, we can see now why.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. He's a big back, and I think there's a role for him in the NFL. But I don't think the role is going to be every down. To be an every down back, you've got to catch the ball in today's game. That's just part and parcel of it. I mean, the days of your pass catcher is the third down back. Those days are long since past. Your primary running back has to be able to catch the ball. It's one of the reasons why the Broncos liked Javonte Williams 2 years ago. Now he had a higher drop rate than you'd like, and we've seen drops from Javonte over the first couple of seasons he's had in the NFL, but he's still an above average pass catching back on the whole. But I mean, Tavion Thomas, man, like I because of you, I went to Las Vegas expecting great things from him, and I was disappointed. I didn't see it. So I'm starting to look elsewhere. One of the guys that I'm like a day or two behind you on kind of breaking down the positions, but one of the guys I write about is Chase Brown out of Illinois as a good solid all round back. And I think, and the interesting thing on Chase Brown is, you know what his 40 time was? Same as Deuce Vaughn's, 4.43. So he's got some speed as well, and he's got a little bit more of an all-around skill set. And I think you're probably talking about fourth, maybe fifth round pick for him, fourth, fifth round value for him. I think that's somebody who actually could, if things break right, be an every down back. The thing about Deuce is just I'm thinking about what the ceiling is. I think he can do some really explosive things. I just don't know how much you're going to be able to use him. How long do 5'5" backs usually last?
Well, I want to ask you about that, Mace, and sorry to cut you off there, but he's Darren Sproles. He may not be as good as Darren Sproles as a pro, but that's that role. And I think, especially day 3, because I'm like you, I don't want him in round 3. Don't really want him in round 4. I think you overdraft him if you get him in round 4. Round 5, 6, yeah, fine. Those are fine spots. And I think we should all recognize and realize, as I'm sure you do, he's a specialist, Yeah. And I think in today's NFL, I remember years ago, this is, I don't know how long ago, 2007, 2008. I remember talking to Big Al, and he was like, the position's getting specialized. Yeah. I was like, what are you talking about? Running back, they got to be 3 down guys. And Big Al's like, just watch. The position will be specialized in a few years. And lo and behold, yes, you do get your Christian McCaffreys, your Nick Chubbs, those type of players that can do everything. And then you get your running back by committee, which it seems that's the way the Broncos are angling, no matter the health status of Javonte Williams.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you look at Sean Payton's time in New Orleans, they've gone in different directions. Like, if he's had the bell cow, he's ridden the bell cow. But he has also had times where he's kind of pieced things together from a bunch of jigsaw pieces that don't always fit together, but he tends to create a cohesive whole in the end and is very adaptive, Belichick style, to what the matchup is on a game-to-game basis, and then even what the matchup is on a play-to-play basis. So I don't have a doubt that he could make it work. I think if it's a Deuce Vaughn, and that he would have a really good role. It's funny you mentioned Darren Sproles, because where did Deuce Vaughn go to school? Where did Darren Sproles go to school? They're both Kansas State Wildcats, right? And Kansas State has, to their credit, had success sending backs who were undersized, didn't really fit the the perfect prototype mold of what you're looking for, and they've had success sending backs to the next level. So you like that, you like that, and yeah, you and I are kind of in the same spot. I'm thinking to myself, okay, like what's the highest ceiling here? But that may not be, in terms of an all around back. But that may not be what Sean Payton is thinking, and I'd say it probably isn't what Sean Payton is thinking. I think he's thinking more of a specific role, and in particular, look, I'd say this. I think those 4.65, 4.7 plotters, I don't really I don't see a reason why they'd be in the Broncos' sights this year. Because I feel like with Samaje Perine in particular, even though he does have some breakaways time speed, he's going to fill more of the plow horse role. And then if you need an extra guy to come in and do that, you can go sign Latavius Murray whenever.
Yeah.
He knows the scheme. He knows everything about his role. He knows the locker room. You just bring him in to be a bit of a relief potentially, and that's it. And then you just wait on Javonte. What you need is some lightning. You've talked about it, thunder and lightning. You've got plenty of thunder. You need some lightning from this draft class.
And the Thunder rolls. I will say this about this draft class of running backs as a whole, Mace. There's no Isaiah Pacheco this year.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, we can talk about, hey, everybody, Faion Hicks. But when you see it and you're like, there's that late round gem, I really don't see any sort of late round gem. I see late round role players, which are fine. Mm-hmm. But I think that's where our conversation has led us today. Like, are you comfortable with the day 3 role player running back? Because that's what this class provides. There's no sort of sleeper Pacheco waiting in the wings. Even my guy Tavion Thomas, again, he's a 2-down plugger. He's more Keontae Ingram than he is Isaiah Pacheco. If we're going to talk about shrine game backs that we saw a year ago, that's his game. And as we saw, Ingram couldn't really break out there behind James Conner in Arizona. So that's what Thomas will be in this league. And it's just one of those years, right? I think when we get to the quarterback conversation or the tight end conversation, these are more robust when we talk about taking a chance, throwing a dart on a late-round guy. This year, I don't see it at running back.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some guys that you kind of bring in and see that. I mean, and you're looking for players who maybe have the time speed, but it for whatever reason hasn't come together. I mean, I think about a guy like Sean Shivers out of Indiana who transferred over from Auburn, and he's somebody who's got some 4.4 speed, but it never translated onto the field in the way that you'd like it to. You'd like to see a little bit better vision. You'd like to see a little bit more explosiveness in the actual football playing realm rather than just with the shorts on. But he's somebody that maybe you make a priority undrafted free agent and you see if you can tap in and say, all right, tap into the time speed and the measurables and say, all right, what can you give me? Can you bring us something that you haven't done? There are a lot of dice rolls here, that especially even as you get into the undrafted realm, and I think this is where maybe you in terms of late drafting and the undrafted pool, you're talking about bringing in guys with high level traits and seeing if you can maximize and bleed something out of them if they've underachieved at the college level. I think that may. Once you get beyond Deuce Vaughn, if we're getting really down in the weeds of the 7th round in the undrafted pool, I think that's what you're looking at here this year.
Yeah, and he won't be undrafted the way Priest Holmes was, but there is one back that is maybe day 3. Mace, you can tell me where you think he'll go, but if it's Roschon Johnson. Like, we made 2 stops this year. I couldn't stop talking about Tavion Thomas in Vegas. Couldn't stop talking about Roschon Johnson in Mobile. Roschon Johnson is that guy. If you do want a 3-down player, if you do not get Spears, and damn it, I always want to call him Tajay Sharp.
I do too.
I've done it. Receiver. I've done that. I've
done it 3 times already.
And then I have to correct myself, and I go back. I get all pissed off because I'm like Tajay Sharp. No, Tajay Spears. So Spears. If you don't get Spears, which you're not going to get Spears, you're not going to get Charbonnet. Is it too early to consider Roschon Johnson, who again? He's behind Bijan Robinson. Robinson is one of the 5 best players in this draft, regardless of position. I know the position's undervalued or whatever. Yeah. The conversation about Robinson isn't one we need to have for the Broncos because there's no way in hell going to be able to draft him. But, Roschon Johnson could have started for multiple dozens upon dozens of college football teams.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect example right there. And you made the Priest Holmes connection as well. And this is somebody who could slip through the cracks and be sitting there and as someone that you can bring in as a priority undrafted player. Or I'll tell you this, I would think long and hard if I haven't addressed running back to this point. I'd even think long and hard about trading back into round 7 to take him. If you haven't taken him
Yes.
in the first 6 rounds and he's sitting there round 7, I might simply say, "Hey, we'll give you, you know, name a back end of the roster player who could have value plus a 7th round pick next year to get a 7th round this year and take Roschon Johnson." That's how I feel about him. But this is also where I think you're going to see George Payton do some pick splitting to to increase the overall complement of picks. He's sitting on 5. I think Peyton ends up with 7 or 8 when all is said and done. And that means if you're picking up that number, you're talking about probably getting a 7th rounder or two or a 6th rounder or two. And that I think could perfectly be in line with where you would roll the dice on Roschon Johnson. Because look, with the situation at Texas, we haven't really learned if he can be, an every down week in and week out back just yet, right? He hasn't had the chance to show if he's got the ability to have 20 touches a game. But on the flip side of that, this is somebody who, because of the role he had at Texas, I think he comes in reasonably fresh. He's also got a potential special teams role as well, because he does have some experience returning kickoffs, and
Right.
that could be a way to get him on the field. Like last year, Cease, just looking at his numbers here, he never had more than 14 touches in a game last season.
Wow.
So this also, if you believe in the theory of accumulated wear and tear, that there's a level that you don't want to reach. Like Monte Ball, for example, he had other issues, no doubt, because of the alcoholism that he dealt with. However, with Monte Ball, he came into Denver with a huge amount of accumulated wear and tear, right? And he ended up flaming out pretty quickly. Then you have Melvin Gordon, who was his relief back and only was the primary back at Wisconsin, I believe, 1 year, and he ends up having a longer career because he didn't have as lot of the same level of wear and tear and the same level of touches in college that Monte Ball had. So you look at Roschon Johnson, and frankly, I think you see somebody and say, okay, he's got the skill set. He also only touched the ball 448 times on offense at Texas. This is a guy who is relatively fresh and may have his best football in front of him.
Yeah, and it's a name that you need to know if you are a Broncos fan, because that solves the riddle of 3-down availability. Like Roschon
Yep.
Johnson could be that guy. So there is a sound like Yoda, right? There is another. Like there's one in this class, depending on where it is. So you think day 3? Because I think someone drafts him. Like there's been so much positive buzz about Roschon Johnson at the Longhorns Pro Day and everything. Like, and I understand it's April and the month of lies, but I think, man, if you don't take him in the 5th round, someone's going to scoop him up.
Maybe. I'd like to see if he could get to 6, but at the same time, I would say this: the Broncos with low draft capital, it's a year to. I think it's a year to swing big on high ceiling. Okay, and he's probably got a higher ceiling than the other day 3 backs that we're talking about.
Oh,
So
for sure. Yep.
I'd rather take that swing in round 6. I'm not opposed to it in round 5. And again, the Broncos and every team's going to have the intel as far as where they think a guy is going to go. And if somebody picks Roschon Johnson in round 5, that means there were a bunch of teams that are going to pick Roschon Johnson right there in that range. If that's not the case, then I think you hold off until round 6. But I would draft him. I mean, I don't think he passes through undrafted, fortunately or unfortunately. But even then, if he was coming close to falling out of the draft entirely, I would trade back in and get him. I wouldn't leave it to chance.
Yep. Andrew Mason, Cecil Lammey, Orange or Blue today, presented by Champ Honda. Mace, why are the Broncos visiting with Luke Musgrave? Luke Musgrave's probably going to be a borderline 1st-round pick. I've got him graded as a first rounder. I think there might be 4 tight ends that go in the first round. The Broncos are going to visit with Luke Musgrave. To that, I say good. I really like Musgrave a lot, the nephew of Billy Moose. But why? You're not even close to being able to draft him.
Well, what if you can trade Jerry Jeudy?
Would
Keeping
you
your
trade
options
Jerry Jeudy
open.
for Luke Musgrave, basically?
Basically, that's what you'd be doing. And look,
would you do that?
Cortland Sutton won't get you there, by the
No.
way. He's
No.
in terms of the draft capital he's going to fetch. Would I do that? Man. Probably. I probably would.
Okay.
Would you?
I would do it as well. Because
part of it is, it's
you've got the wide tight end that can block and he can catch. He can do everything. That Dulcich is only one. Everyone loves Greg Dulcich. There's nothing wrong with Greg Dulcich as a receiver. There's plenty of wrong with him being a blocker. He's one-dimensional. He's hurt all the time. That's a problem.
You have 2 guys who are move tight ends right now, right?
Right.
Okay. Dulcich and Alberto, they're both in space guys. You don't trust them as blockers. And I don't know if Greg Dulcich is ever going to get healthy enough on a consistent basis to be that. Whereas Luke Musgrave is the complete package. And again, I lean on positional value. I lean on scarcity of talent at the position. It's easier to find wide receivers at a high level than it is to find tight ends. Okay. And I know Broncos country may be like, well, we took the swing at Jerry Jeudy and missed. Okay. Yeah. There were, Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, and
some guy named Justin Jefferson.
Right. I mean, you had 3 guys. There were 3 guys, and you got one who was okay. You didn't get the guy who was one of the 2 studs there. Okay.
At least didn't get Jalen Reagor.
Yeah. Who went right after that.
Exactly.
And you didn't get Henry Ruggs. I mean, that's just incredibly tragic, everything regarding him. But you can find receivers in any given year in the draft process. Tight ends, again, one of the reasons why we talk about tight end maybe being where the Broncos go in the 3rd round if they stand pat with their draft picks is because this is an unusual year in terms of tight end prospects. There aren't many years like this. You get this many quality tight ends who, like Luke Musgrave, you're talking about guys who can block as well, okay? True every down tight ends that can go in line and line up in space. They're the unicorns. You know what? There's a reason why George Kittle and Travis Kelce have huge contracts. It's because they're rare. I mean, you can find plenty of pass catchers, but we can find someone who can block. And Luke Musgrave, he's not just a blocker who's out there kind of being a dependable blocker. He's a damn good blocker. Okay, this guy, if you have to rely on him in pass pro against quality edges, put it this way. Remember a few years ago when they put Noah Fant on Khalil Mack and were like, "What are you doing?" Rich Scangarello, "What are you doing?" That's not favorable. You could put Luke Musgrave out there on an island on the edge. He could hold his own against some of the better edge rushers that you'll see, and that opens things up tactically in so many ways. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting visit because I think it does tell you that the Broncos may well still be open for trading business. And oh, by the way, if they trade Jeudy, let's say they only get a second and a player, then look for a subsequent deal with that 2 and maybe at least one of those 3s to move up late into the 1st round where you could be talking about Luke Musgrave being your pick. It may be a stair-step process to get there.
As long as they get there and they get their guy, if it's Luke Musgrave, we'll do dances. And by the way, we need to alert everyone in our building because you and I are on all day 2 and all day 3 of the draft. We better be ready day 1.
Well,
I'm not saying the Broncos are out of the 1st round. I'm not saying that at all, dude. It'll be pick 32, and I'll still think the Broncos are trying to sneak in.
Well, this is sort of inside our business, but I mean, as a contingency, they've made a request for a credential request for the draft. So if we get wind that if the Broncos are potentially trading back up and finding a way maybe to get in the first round, I might be sitting there in Kansas City when the pick comes down. So I mean, we're kind of we have all these plans, but we're having to be kind of very nimble, right? Because we don't quite know how this is going to go. But when you see Musgrave on the list of visits, that tells you, that they wouldn't be doing that if they didn't have potential trade up, even though they don't really have the capital. It means getting the capital some other way. They wouldn't be doing this if they didn't have that on their radar, okay? As we always say, focus on what they do, not what they say. And what they're doing is they're meeting with Luke Musgrave.
It's smart football.
Yeah.
It's smart football. I mean, if they're just sitting there, and God bless Daniel Barker. We saw him at the Shrine Bowl. They're going to do a visit with him, although I heard it was a Zoom visit. Aren't they done with Zoom visits? Didn't they reach the max? Anyway, but they're looking at the Michigan State kid. He's an undrafted guy. Okay, which is fine. He's a fine talent, whatever. We could do 3 hours on Daniel Barker. We don't have to. Yeah. But when you're going at Luke Musgrave, when you're bringing him out to UC Health Training Center, that's a message that they're going to be ready in case they make a move.
Right. And it means that despite what was said at the league meetings, pardon me, that they are not pushing away from the table when it comes to a potential trade of a pass catcher. That is still in play. And even Sean Payton did make the statement that he thought there would be more calls to come as you got closer to the draft, and maybe teams didn't like this complement of wide receivers as much as someone like Jerry Jeudy who could be available. So this is, basically stay tuned. And as just because things are quiet in terms of press conferences and all that at UC Health Training Center, don't mistake that for a lack of activity. There's an awful lot going on beneath the surface, as we see with a visit with Luke Musgrave.
Orange and Blue today.
This is what we're here for.
Monday through Friday. It is what we're here for. It is presented by Champ Honda Mesa. I am on assignment tomorrow. I'm actually a featured artist at a comic book convention, so come on out to the All Seas Expo if you want to see me.
Hey,
and my comic books. Yay, nerd stuff. So I will be out tomorrow.
I prefer the term graphic novels.
Graphic novels, yes.
My daughter reads graphic novels.
Okay,
so,
all right.
Yes.
Right. Street Angel is a good graphic novel for young readers. Anyway, I always love when people are like, comic books. I'm like, you'd be surprised how many movies were actually comic books or graphic novels before they were movies.
There's legitimate literary heft and artistic heft to that medium.
Yeah. Yep.
That some people don't realize.
Yeah. Road to Perdition was a comic book.
That's right.
Graphic novel, whatever. So people are always like, comic book. It doesn't mean always superhero. I know we got a little superhero fatigue in today's world. But Mace, I'll miss you tomorrow.
Yep. And Will Peterson will fill in for you. So.
Will Peterson filling in tomorrow. I'll make sure to be a little more calm on tomorrow's program.
You'll be okay.
I was in a mood today. Then we started talking football, and I got in a good mood.
I know. We just had to find your happy place. It's not Chubbs Peterson in a garden having his hand back playing We've Only Just Begun on the piano, right? For you, it's just talking ball.
It's just talking ball. That's what we do right here on this program. He is Andrew Mason. You follow him on Twitter at Mace Denver. I am at Cecil Lammey, saying until next time, be safe, be kind, know that you are appreciated. Stay tuned. And as always, please stay frosty.